Hey guys, how you doing? I want to address a question that I've been getting a lot of comments and stuff about, which is actually how do I make my stencils, or how do you make your own stencils? I made a video a little while ago, but it was more or less just me cutting a stencil and then painting it, but I want to go a lot more in depth with it. The easiest way to do it is with Photoshop. You don't have to use Photoshop, but I find it to be the easiest. I'm going to do it on Mac. I don't know if it's different for Windows. I don't use Windows, but this is how you do it on Mac. 90% of the time I use my own photos. This is not one of my own photos. This is a picture of Tom York, who is the lead singer of the band Radiohead, and they're amazing. If you don't listen to them, then you should. But let me just show you, just real quick. I'm going to go through the Photoshop end of it, and then I'm going to talk about stenciling papers, different materials that you can use, ways to get it onto the paper, larger, whatever. And I'm just going to hit on a lot of different things. I'm only going to do a one-layered stencil. It is different if you do multiple layers, like ones that I've done in past videos, but that's a whole different animal. I'm not going to go into that right now. But the easiest way to do just a one-layer stencil is you bring your photo that you have here into Photoshop. I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but I'll try and explain it the best that I can. And once you have your photo, under Image, you want to go to Mode and adjust your photo into grayscale. It's going to ask you if you want to discard all the color information and just say yes. And that'll give you the grayscale of your photo. At this point, you can go over and erase the background if you want. It's not really going to make that big of a difference in this photo. It's one of those things that you just kind of got to play with. And then after that, go back to Image, and under the adjustments, you want to change the brightness and the contrast of the photo. This photo is kind of dark. I don't know if you can see in general. It's just a dark photo. And if you bring the brightness up a little bit, it distinguishes better between the light and dark areas of the photo, which is going to make it easier later. So just hit OK. And then back under Image again, you want to go to Adjustments, and down towards the bottom, switch over to Threshold, which is going to give you just the black and white of your photo, which if you're making a one-layered stencil, that's what you want. You want just black and white, because when you print it out and you use it later, you're going to cut out all the black areas. Now, the trick here is this is where a lot of the editing and just time is put in with it, because if you can see, obviously, if you go too far dark, you're going to lose your picture completely. You're not going to be able to see anything. You're going to end up cutting too much. And as a stencil, it's not going to stay together. You have to keep in mind this entire time that you're making a stencil. You need something that's going to stay together. On the other hand, if you go too bright, you're going to lose your image again. You don't cut out enough, and you can't distinguish what it actually is. So you need to stay somewhere in the middle where you have enough distinguishing features to tell what it is, but at the same time it's not too dark that you're going to cut everything away. Whenever you're done, I'm just going to leave it here. Just hit OK, and then it's usually at this point, if you want to, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, just get to the eraser, and you can just erase some of the background, which, it's going to make it easier for you later when you're cutting out. And you have to keep in mind, like over here, you can't, there, you have to distinguish where his back is. I'm probably just going to erase most of this background completely, so that you'll be able to tell, that he's sitting there. I have another one here, which will show you the difference. After you've deleted the background, or erased it rather, it's a lot easier to be able to tell when you're cutting out what you're dealing with. Now, once you have your stencil, I'm just going to leave it like this, where you want it, you have a couple different options. You're going to have to print it out, but what are you using the stencil for? That's what you need to consider. Is it just going to be a smaller stencil where you're talking something that would fit onto your average piece of paper? Then you can just print it out like that. Do you want a larger stencil? Do you need something that's going to be big, portrait size? If that's the case, you're going to have to print it out in sections, and so that you have a larger version of it. Or if you have a projector or something, or if you're just going to do it freehand, you have to decide what you're going to use it for. I'm just going to print this out as if I was making a smaller stencil that I'm going to use in a piece of artwork for something. Now, your options are, what are you going to use, to print your stencil on? Which again, what are you going to use it for? If it's something that you're going to reuse lots and lots of times, you're going to want to print it out on a piece of transparent plastic, kind of like what this one is. I don't know if you can tell. but it's clear plastic. Teachers use it for like overhead projectors and things like that, and you can put that right in your printer and just print out right on it and then cut it out. Also, you can use, I have a bigger sheet here. This is acrylic paper. It's like the size of poster stock, but it's not as big. It's real heavy and it's porous, and it's used to be painted on with acrylic paint. You can buy it at any hobby store or anything, and the weight just kind of depends on, you know, what do you want. You just kind of got to feel it. It's one of those things you need to have a feel for it. You can use regular poster board or anything, and most of those things you can cut to size and just put right in your printer and print out on it. If that's not what you want to do, another thing you can do is to print out your paper on a regular print out your stencil rather on a regular piece of paper, and then put it up to a window or something that, you know, you have light coming through, and then another piece of paper over that, and you can trace it on the window if you don't want to put it directly in your printer. Otherwise, you print it out in sections, tape all the sections together so that you have the size that you wanted, and then trace it on a window. That way you can have a bigger version, something that you wouldn't be able to get directly from your printer. That's also an option. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of the acrylic paper to size, go ahead and put it in my printer and print this out, and then I'll show you the cutting process that I'm going to go through.